Buenos dias, amigos. The History Committee is at it again. Last time we had to traipse up through the north of Alaska to find Pat Simpson. Now we're punishing ourselves one more time down here in this resort hotel in Mexico to bring you an interview with another one of the pioneers of our society, Enrique Ruspini.
Who am I? Well, earlier today you heard Jim Keller say the CIS was on track to find Enrique Hector Ruspini. I've been brought in as a special consultant to see if I can't find this elusive man. He's here somewhere, folks, here in Cancun, Mexico. We'll find him, we'll interview him, and you'll know him. He is a true pioneer, and with that, I again leave you. Get him! Get him! Look at that, look at that. There he is! We've spotted him now! In a minute, our interview will start. Enrique Hector Ruspini. We're on. Okay, well, I'm Jim Bezdek with the CIS History Committee. We have finally been able to get Enrique Ruspini here to sit down with us today and talk a little bit about the early days, his early involvement with the NNC, which morphed into the NNS and then the CIS. So let's just get right into it, Enrique. The first question on my template is an interesting one. What persuaded you to study engineering in the first place?
Well, actually, I started as a physicist because there was in Argentina, where I got my undergraduate degree, there was the big thing. I mean, the thing that would make important was to do nuclear physics, and Argentina had a strong nuclear physics program. And so I started as a student of physics, and then I switched into math. And I was one of the few people studying math that actually did numerical analysis, which was the only form really of applied math that was done at the moment. And so that's how I wound up, okay, little by little, drifting from physics to math, to applied math, and eventually to engineering.
Okay, and this is all in Argentina?
Yeah, well, the drift started in Argentina, but really took place mainly in the United States when I came to work with Dick Bellman. There you had a famous mathematician that was in my mind more of an engineer than a mathematician, and people like Bob Calava and George Baker that were at USC, I mean, were quite influential. And in Argentina, I mean, there was at one point in time people said, well, you realize that that doctors now want to use computers, which was a totally unheard of idea up to the moment, because you use it either for computers, either for finance, or to compute orbits of comets or do things like that, or to do statistics. And so I started being the first guy doing working with doctors in Argentina. So when I came to do my PhD, I wrote to Bellman that had just gotten his big grant from NIH, and I got big time into computer applications into medicine, and that's really how I did my how the drift happened. And also I work with economists, because that's an interesting story on how I became interested in fuzzy sets. Since I started being labeled as the guy that did interdisciplinary work around the computer center, the first computer center in Argentina, I was working with a group of economists, and they were using simulation models of the Argentinian economy. And they had troubles, they had no trouble producing outputs. I mean, every single set of inputs representing economic policy would produce some set of outputs supposedly describing what was going to happen. But the output itself was 1,500 variables, a vector 1,500 variables long. And so they wanted to classify them in some way. And just by sheer accident, I was thinking about the problem and the difficulties involved in doing cluster analysis and reading work of taxonomies. I probably remember Jardine and Zipf and all those early works. And here I walk into the library of the Department of Mathematics, and here is an issue of information and control with the first paper of fuzzy sets by Saleh. And I said, well, maybe this looks great among some other things, because then I can do optimization using continuous variable methods. And the person who was in charge of the economics group was quite perceptive. Immediately he realized that these were the things to use and that they were not probabilities. And he says, well, some things are recessions, some things are depressions, and there are things that are in the middle. And it doesn't make any sense to talk about whether something is a recession or a depression. So that's how fuzzy clustering started. I mean, just out of that application in Argentina.
You've moving along, Enrique, you've mentioned several people already. One of the questions that we'd like to ask everyone is there a single person that you would name that influenced your decision to move into these technical areas?
Well, my father was a professor at the university, so he was a professor of qualitative chemistry. So science was floating in the air. But my mother in particular was quite keen on seeing me become a scientist. And she was always telling me about all these wonderful people, particularly physicists, that were getting Nobel Prizes and whatnot. And so that's how, I started to think that was probably my career. And that was confirmed because I went to high school in the Navy. And they had some professor that did counseling, career counseling. And so he said, yeah, you look like you should be doing logic or math or something like that. And so that's how I went naturally into that direction.
Well, that's a great answer. We all stand in awe of our moms, of course. I'm no exception there. You've already mentioned some of the things that we have on our list. For example, when you got involved in the CI technologies, what triggered your jump into them? Your first CI-related activity, I guess that would be the fuzzy sets experience.
Yeah.
Enrique published the first paper on fuzzy clustering in 1969, so he must have been involved in it a little earlier than that in order to have the publication appear then. Do you want to say any more about that very early time?
Yeah, I think that in late '65 was when the paper of Saleh and fuzzy sets came to Argentina. And we worked for a while, and I started, there was this process whereby we were trying to find a performance index that that worked, and at the same time could be used as a basis for optimization method. So I played with several of those, and then what happened in '66, when I was just about to come to the United States, and the paper was more or less written, there was a military revolution in Argentina, which was quite terrible for the university in particular. And one night, in fact, I got interviewed not long ago because it was the 40th anniversary of that night. The military sent the police into my school, and they start bashing people's head, and I just managed to escape because I had left like an hour before. And that's still known as the Night of the Long Sticks. And that was terrible for Argentinian scientists. In the computer center, we all resigned. And lots of scientists resigned, and to the point that you see 40 years later, there are documentaries being made about that. And I think that Argentinian science hasn't quite recovered from that awful episode. So that stopped me for a little bit, and then it was just the natural process of sending it. I mean, I was a kid without much expectations. I mean, perhaps if I had more experience, I would have said, no, I shouldn't send my first paper to information and control. But that was the saddest choice for his paper. So, to my great surprise, it got accepted without much problem.
Okay, well, let's turn to your involvement with the CIS Society and vice versa. So let me first ask you, what impact do you think the three societies really have made on you, starting with the NNC, then to the NNS and CIS?
Well, from the very moment, I mean, I will say that the IEEE gave us a certain amount of respectability. We were always meeting we were always kind of the marginal session on this or that conference. I remember we came with you and Madame Gupta on a flight from Acapulco, where there was a General Systems conference, and we had a bunch of papers over there, but we were thinking, how can we have our own conferences, and that's when we thought of the NAFIPS and the International Journal of Approximate Reasoning and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, when you called me in '92 and you said, well, the IEEE is interested in doing this, I mean, I was quite elated.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, in '93, I ran those two conferences in San Francisco, and then the IEEE back really beat me, because I kept going over there and became division director, and I'm still involved at several levels in the IEEE. So I'll say, I mean, that it made me value the importance of being a volunteer and to participate in the largest professional organization in the world. And so it was a great experience, and learn about what other people think about different issues and work together with them through a deliberative process is very interesting.
Yeah, so the flip question is also an interesting one. You have done many things for the society. Could you just briefly characterize what you think for perhaps two or three of the most important things you have done for us?
Well, the thing I feel most proud of is leading the change from council to society, because it was bugging us for many years. And I may say that to a large extent the credit is not only shared by the people that were helping me. I remember that Jim Keller was in that famous meeting where we beat a vote by 24 to 23, and then then we start sailing clearly. But it was a bunch of people that came before me and tried different ways of making us into a society, and failed. But you learn from their failures, because at least you say, okay, well, this is things I shouldn't do, and this is things that we ought to avoid. So I guess that by the time 2001, we were facing that. When I was president of the council, I mean, we just tried to pick a kind of blitzkrieg strategy to get us changed. So that I'm very happy about.
I agree with you 100%. It was a super important step for us to move from being a council to a society, and you were the guy who got it done. So our hats are off to you, Enrique, you see. And let me know. I know that you're now chairing a steering committee of the society, and you probably have some thoughts for what's going to happen in the future. Could you give us, what you envision to be the evolution of some of these technologies?
Well, I think that we are just really at the threshold of a number of things. I see, for example, biology being integrated with math and computation all over the place, and in ways that that people still, even in some societies of the IEEE, in some of the organizations, do not fully comprehend. So many people, for example, are aware that you can use engineering in medicine and biology, but they lack the perspective to see the importance of biological and nature-inspiring sites into science. So we are starting to see it in bioinformatics, and the way in which these things start to shape our methods and to lead us to new ideas in evolutionary computation, in a number of concepts that come directly from biology. So I have been an advocate of things like, for example, risky enterprises like the autonomous mental development group and their transactions, because I believe that in the long run, those things are really going to be very important.
Well, the technologies that underlie robotic surgery, for example, many of them are in our society, belong to, they appear in the journals that we sponsor, and I believe that, surgery by robots, whether we think it's good or not, it's coming, and it's coming fast. It's a really interesting field, and it's interesting that you identify medicine and biology as part of our real future, and I think probably our society will move that way. Do you have any final comments that things you'd like to add or cover that we haven't talked about? We like to keep these interviews to 15 or 20 minutes, but I don't want to cut you short.
Well, just I still enjoy. I find myself in a difficult spot when I try to think about retiring. So I don't want to retire.
Oh, come on, retirement's good.
Yeah, no, I just I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll get. I am already in a retirement mood, but I like to do research. I mean, it's a tough call to have to go. I mean, away from my family for long periods of times in Spain. But I'm enjoying my experience over there.
So you live in Spain now permanently, or
no?
More or less full time?
Oh, I would say I spend maybe 60% of the time in Spain and 40% in California, where I still have consulting connections and things like that. But now I have students, I have a staff. I mean, in every single job I had in the United States, I was always a solo independent researcher. By and large, every now and then, maybe do something with somebody, but by and large, I mean, we were just single entities, for example, SRI. So right now I'm really very happy. I mean, I find it very convenient what I'm doing in Mieres, in Asturias. Okay.
Well, I think we're probably at the end of the question list that we have. Any suggestions for us? Who would you recommend that we interview next? We're trying to get a bunch of people in the queue. I would like to get Russ Eberhardt and Bob Marks and John Taylor, and I don't know if we'll be able to get Lotfi or not. We certainly need to get Lotfi and Bernie Woodrow, don't you think?
Yes, yeah. Certainly, yeah. Bernie is, in particular, I mean, has such a interesting and an extensive perspective on the field of neural networks, because he was over there from the beginning. I will say, Jay McClellan probably it would be a good name. I mean, just about anybody in the list of pioneers and in the Rosenblatt awardees, and yourself. Oh, you have been already interviewed.
They forced me to do the first one.
That's right. But Piero himself, I mean, it's there
are many, and
Eddie Sanchez, for example. Eddie Sanchez published a paper in Information and Control like a couple of years. I mean, that was all the papers on resolution of fuzzy equations and the notion of inverting fuzzy matrices and whatnot. I mean, that was really pioneer work. I mean, it was, I think, 70, 71 or something like that.
Well, I always like to close with the thing that was seen in the last one that you may or may not have seen already, but whenever you're on television, and you will be on television, so to speak, the last thing you should do is say, "Hi, Mom." Would you like to say that? And at this time of the year, we should also say, Feliz Navidad. And with that, over and out. Okay, Enrique, thank you so much. It was a great interview.
Well, it's nice to see you.